Well, hello everybody and the internet world and Redemption family and those who joined in from other places and other people. We're going to start a new project here or a new venture here where we're going to be checking on our ministry partners throughout this COVID experience, COVID-19. We support missionaries around the world, and you guys are so awesome at generously giving to Redemption. And I want you to know that generosity isn't just going to pay ministers' salaries while we're not having the gathering. It's actually going to do ministry around the world. And so we wanted to check in and see how things were going. And we thought a great place to start would be with Drew Thurman and the Renaissance crew. They're our largest partner ministry. They're one of our most exciting one, going to the unchurched area of New England and the Boston area. And so we're really excited for the work they're doing. And actually, I think you'll see throughout this conversation that we're going to have today that they're in a great place to really be the hands and feet of Jesus through all this. And so we're excited about starting. So good morning, Drew, almost afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Redemption. Hello, Darrel. How are you guys doing?
Doing really well. Like we said before we got started here, it's a strange season, but it's been a good season. And I tell you what, I've got to spend more time with family than I ever dreamed possible. And I think we're starting some new habits, hopefully, that we keep going post-COVID a little bit, but we're doing really well. And the church is doing great. And I'm just really excited for how our people have responded to being the church being the people, not the building, which is something that you're passionate about, I know. And so we're really excited about that. And so anyway, how's the family? I know you brought you guys had a new baby. So how's the Thurman crew?
It's crazy. We are learning what everyone tells you that having two is difficult. So yeah, 2 months as of yesterday, we welcomed Dottie Kendall Thurman, our second daughter, here with us. And so yeah, we've been navigating having two. We've been dealing with the newborn and the sleepless nights, and also potty training Annie in the season, who's almost 3. So yeah, trying to keep our sanity. But yeah, we're doing great as a family. Bree's doing great. And, we're just trying to, stay safe, hunker down, and enjoy the family time. I've been kidding around that I've got government mandated paternity leave. So spending some extra time just helping Bree out and, cherishing moments that I'm not going to get back with both of my girls. So we're doing good.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And we love watching the social media feeds, especially as Annie is getting to talk a lot more and be she's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't know where she got loving to talk a lot from. It's no, not at all. Yeah, totally a Thurman trait. So yeah, she's sometimes even I'm about as extroverted as can be, and there's sometimes I just need to go outside because she hasn't stopped talking for 2 hours. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome, and as it should be. That's awesome. Well, why don't for people that maybe don't know a lot about Renaissance, why don't you just give a little background about what the church is all about, the ministry, the movement is about there for Renaissance?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the quick version is just simply that we believe that there is a larger and larger percentage of people who aren't interested in going to a Sunday morning centric church. So when we came almost 2 years ago to plant Renaissance, we kind of went about it a little bit of a different way and saying, rather than, not that there's anything wrong with that, but rather than put all of our effort and energy on Sunday mornings that are probably just going to attract transplants and already Christians, let's actually live as missionaries and begin to add church structure and build thinking for people who are actually far from God or spiritually curious. And, again, we're kind of on the front end of that in post-Christian. I think around the country, that's going to become more and more of a reality. I referred to it as the 60-40 principle before, that about 40% of the pie, 40% of people are willing to go to a Sunday morning centric thing, about 60% aren't. And yet about 95% of churches are all going after that 40%. So we need more pioneers. We need more people to think outside the box and begin to try things for the 60%. So that's what we kind of came in doing, and have started to build what we call micro churches, which are I hate to, I think people think small groups or, think Bible studies are a lot more than that. It really is being the church in a small form built around where people already live, work, and play. And so some of them look like house churches. Some of them meet in third spaces. Some of them are neighborhood based. Some of them are more like based around shared life experience or age group or affinity. But all in all, they're, kind of having worship, community, and mission in common. So all of them have that in common. They all look different. They evolve differently based off of the leadership and who they're trying to reach. And then ultimately out of that, we're trying to worship once a month in a larger form, just so that we feel like we're not alone and can be encouraged and be equipped to go back out and do the work of ministry. So maybe the best analogy that we use all the time is don't think restaurant, think food truck. We're not just a brick and mortar. We are kind of commissioning and sending out food trucks all throughout our region of the city to be the hands and feet of Jesus where they're already at.
That's awesome. And I know your original plan, was to launch your first monthly large group gathering on Easter Sunday. And of course, that kind of got thrown sideways. But what's really cool about this, and what I think we want to speak to in just a little bit, is maybe just a little bit how you're positioned as well as anybody could be to be ministering in hands and feet during this COVID-19 crisis. And I guess not only that, but you're in a fairly hot spot in Massachusetts. Really, the numbers are growing, despite the fact that they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing to get them down. It's just one of those areas. So many people traveling from other parts of the world there. And so anyway, I think I'd like to hear from, first of all, how you're doing in this crisis, but also how you're positioned to really do some pretty cool ministry there.
Yeah, I think great questions. Boston and Massachusetts, unfortunately, we continue to climb. We haven't hit our peak yet, despite, we've been, one of the early adopters of stay at home. But just being an old city, population density, being what it is, it's growing, and it is scary. It's scary in our city. Even in our neighborhood, I think we've had well over 400 cases and a handful of deaths already just in our immediate area. So it is a scary reality. And I think the sad part, we live in very like a blue collar neighborhood. And I think it really showcases the income, disparity between the rich and the poor in a place like Boston. And so, you realize very quickly, while everybody's kind of guilting you if you're not quarantining yourself and staying at home, that's really a privilege. We're lucky as a family that we have that opportunity. A lot of our neighbors and our friends don't. And so that's been hard to watch. And then even just in our neighborhood, because it's so blue collar, food insecurity is just becoming a harsh reality. And so all of our, we've got a lot of nonprofits in our area that are trying to deal with it. But, anytime they're handing out free food, there'll be a 4 to 6 block wait, and they don't even have enough food to go around. And so, hundreds and hundreds of families, thousands of individuals just in our immediate area are struggling just to feed their families right now. So thankfully, and I would say beyond just what we're doing as a church and like our, church programming or the things that we're doing to spiritually shape people, that's been one of the coolest things we've been able to step in and do. We stepped in from day one and started partnering and serving alongside those community partners. The mission team that came out that you were a part of, got to serve with a bunch of them. We started right away when this happened, week 1, and just said, hey, you guys are the front lines of this. You're doing God's work, whether or not you realize it. So we want to help the helpers. And it's been awesome to just watch as that's, as we've built partnerships. One of our community partners, as we were checking in on them, literally said, we ran out of food serving the homeless that we're loving on and feeding every day. And I just called one of our connections and said, if we don't have a miracle, we're not going to be able to feed anybody tomorrow. The same day we contacted them, got to completely fill their pantry again through the generosity of some of the people already connected to our church, and help them out. And I think that's just been some of the cool stories of what we've been able to do. There's a lot of those where we've been able to provide food and supplies to help out. And a lot of people have been stepping in to give for the first time ever locally here because they see what we're doing and want to be a part of the work in our neighborhood. So that's an awesome part of it. Even though we just mourn and we're constantly just struggling to feel like we wish we could do more, with all those cases and all the things that are going on in our city. From a church side, it really has, doing micro church lends itself very easily to having to adapt because you're small, because you've already kind of built a spiritual family, so to speak. It's easy, I think, to move to technology. We talk a lot that technology is probably not the best place to form relationships, but it definitely showcases if you have strong relationships and you can further those. And so we've seen a lot, we've seen us not even missing a beat, connecting and loving on one another. We want to be in person, but we're still being able to share each other's lives, care for one another. And then there's just so many like small stories that are happening of people serving and loving one another, seemingly insignificant things, but they're treating other people in the Renaissance family like they would their own family. And so I think we're making a statement to our neighborhood and to the city around us that the church really is an alternative community and is doing something to live in the way of Jesus and model what is to come, hopefully bringing a taste of heaven to earth. And I can't think of a better apologetic or testimony for a city and for an area that's pretty cynical of organized religion, to see people caring and loving for each other the way I think it's starting to take place in the Renaissance family. So been a pretty amazing thing to watch our simple way of doing relational community, being a spiritual family on mission together, adapt even in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah, that's incredible. And those ministry partnerships that we got to work with while we were out with you guys, I believe the Salvation Army was one of those, and then the day shelter. Got to do a little bit in the day shelter because something I never wrap my mind around that much is, most homeless shelters, you have to be out every day because they have to do their things, and so there's no place to go in the cold months, and so day shelters are important, and we got to visit one of those. But that kind of brings me to I want to get back a little bit with the community here shortly, but before that, the homeless population displacement is really big in that area. The area you're located, and from what I'm understanding from COVID, is the homeless are obviously really affected by this virus. And so, have you seen that? I know you're not out as much as you would be normally, but have you seen that?
Oh yeah, it's definitely, it's one of the bigger storylines in our neighborhood. Thankfully the city of Waltham stepped in and partnered with two of actually our nonprofit connections, and they built tents out on this in the center of the city in the common, and are housing those people during the day and helping them try to quarantine. There was a number pretty quickly, a number of homeless folks that had to get rushed to the hospital right away because they weren't being able to be quarantined and were contracting the virus. So yeah, that's been a huge storyline. And a lot of the nonprofits, they can't, due to the stay at home, can't have anyone in their building, but they're providing to-go food for those homeless folks. And that's really where they've been running out of food, because a lot of them, the stuff that they're getting would typically, they're cooking in a kitchen and making a little bit of ingredients go a long way. Well, suddenly when you have to provide individually packaged to-go stuff, they don't have the resources or the connections, and they're shopping at the same places we're having to shop at, and the shelves are barren. The shelves are barren right now. So that's where we've had to been able to step in and help and say, you guys just continue to love on those folks. Let us provide some of the food. And thankfully, there's so many other great people in our city that are stepping in and helping them as well. But definitely a dominant storyline, and it just breaks your heart. Just reminds you again that those that were already struggling are the ones who are the front end of being the most vulnerable in this season at this time period. Yeah, absolutely, and it doesn't even have to be those who are homeless, but so many people, because of the cost of living and for places, they're
paycheck to paycheck as much in your area, probably in your city, as anywhere. And so something like this really, really hurts. And thankfully, there are a lot of ministries, a lot of non-ministry programs, and a lot of government programs that are trying to step up and help out. But we appreciate your part on that. And I do think that you guys, Renaissance, is uniquely in a good spot in terms of how you can live out your the ironing sharpen iron, the relationships, because of your groups, your different communities of faith that meet in homes and third party places. I think that's cool. It's really cool that people who probably challenged you a lot about your approach, probably some people even probably criticized that approach. Now they're probably looking to people like you for how do we live out this micro church thing
yes,
a little bit better.
I've gotten a lot of calls in the last couple of weeks. I think a lot of people are looking, and I think Andy Crouch has said it really well, comparing it from us thinking this was a snowstorm initially to a blizzard to maybe an ice age. What does this look like? What are even the economic ramifications over the next couple of years? And so I think a lot of us are starting to ask questions like, some of the things that we took as have-tos with the church, maybe we can think outside the box. And so I think we've had a lot of folks asking us like, hey, we're asking some of those questions. You guys seem to be asking them and maybe be a little bit further down the road. And we keep saying we're not experts. I feel like I'm learning from the School of Hard Knocks all the time how hard it is to do relational ministry in the way that we're doing it. But I'm thankful for it. And there's so many, if I had an hour, I could tell just so many little beautiful stories as to what we're doing, how we are so rooted in our place and truly are connected to each other and the lives around us. And so it's been a pretty beautiful season to watch the church evolve and, even in the midst of a pandemic. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been one of the blessings for us is that, you were always a part of our Redemption family, but you're on staff here for so long. And, our goal and our target has always been to teach people that the church isn't a place, but it's a people that live in a place and that are dedicated to making that place, bringing heaven to earth. And the concept, I was reading a devotion this morning that talked about the temple of God and how that fire came down and filled the temple and people were in awe. And that's supposed to be us. We're the temple of God. And that's what you guys, and as hard as we try to do that here, because you're a part of it, you push our community groups to be that way. When you've been meeting together in a large gathering for now being May to be 20 years, it's hard to get that mindset in people. And so therefore this has helped rekindle that mindset in a lot of our people. Awesome. and help them. And I'm so amazed at how fast some of them have adjusted and pivoted and realized, hey, you know what? We're not the buildings that we are at. While they're great tools and they're going to work great in the future, they're not what it's all about. It's about the people of God gathering and it together, whether it be in small groups and homes and we're really longing for the day when we can get together with our small groups. I know I want to do the large group gathering. I'm looking forward to when the state and everybody says it's healthy. But what I'm really looking forward to is the first week we gathered as small groups to watch the digital gathering services together and then sing together and take communion together. Well, now it's just kind of been our families, which has been really neat. But we're looking forward to getting together with our community groups again to do that. And I think it's cool to see you guys able to do that, and we can learn from you a little bit on how to do this. So what would be some words of wisdom you would give our faith community here about that?
Well, one, I just got to say kudos. I think that's an awesome, I just actually was watching the first session of the Q Summit this morning before you called me. And Francis Chan was on. He gave an incredible little metaphor when he said, I hear so many people saying this is the end of this church or that church. And he said, he goes, the way I look at it is if you try to if you try to get a hammer out and break a diamond, you can't. If it's the real thing, it's not going to break. If it's fake, it will. And he said, I think we're finding out right now, if you've really not been building disciples and helping people be the church, and not just a building, well, maybe you will break apart. But those that have been doing that, they're not going to break. And they might have to evolve. It might look a little bit different. And so cool to hear churches like Redemption say, yeah, like, we're just as strong as ever, and we're still the church. We've been forming people in that way. We're not fake. We're not a fraud. We're the church. So kudos. But yeah, I think for us, I really think it's not that difficult. I think it's just, I think going slow. I think we need to work on helping people go slower in their rhythm of life. And I hope, I tweeted out this. I think there's some of us need to be asking the question, maybe some of the things that we're mourning having to give up are things we shouldn't go back to. And maybe we need to, live a little bit more simple and have a little bit more margin in our lives to actually be rooted where we are. Some of the cool things that are happening by believers being connected to each other, to their neighbors, to their neighborhoods, to the needs in the city around them. What if that didn't stop after COVID? Like, what if you had the margin and the space to be that aware and to actually be able to be a part of meeting those needs? I think that would be an amazing thing. And then secondarily, like, I would just say, what happens when we stop saying the church is like a spiritual family and we actually say the church is a spiritual family? I would say the biggest thing that I've learned in this process of coming and being a part of a micro church, and I've been a part of some great small groups and some other things, but it's so different in the sense that you really are committing yourself. You're giving up your autonomy. There's not really anything consumeristic about it. It's an inconvenience sometimes because it's more than just a weekly event. It's more than just a Bible study. It is a 7-day a week thing. And just like a family, you annoy each other, you wear each other out. There's needs that happen like the same way, when I'm holding, my newborn that's crying and suddenly my daughter has had an accident in the house as she's learning, and I'm like running around, I'm just like rolling my eyes like, gosh, that happens in a spiritual family where you look and you're like, goodness, like I have to go and help with this again. Like I thought they would be past this, or why are they so stupid? And you do it anyways and you love it. God seems to do something in the midst of us committing our lives to one another to help us to truly experience all that he has for us in his way, the way of Jesus. And I think sometimes we treat the Christian life like we're a brain on a stick, that if we just retain enough information, that's going to make us be more Christ-like, and that's going to go to our actions. And it's really just not true. And the American church is proof of that. We have a lot of people who have sat in pews who have never embodied the Christian life. We actually have to live it out and practice it. And the best place for that to happen is in smaller community and people that we treat as a spiritual family, that we learn how to love. We learn the fruits of the Spirit. They don't come naturally to us. And we can hear someone preach Galatians 5 till they're red in the face. But until we actually learn, love and joy and peace and patience, all those things, we can only do that in committed community. And so that would be my encouragement, is just whether it is your small group, whether it's some other form of spiritual community you have connected to Renaissance, whether it's a rooted group, whether it's, some neighbors, whatever it is, find some people who are Christ-like that you can commit your life to, and just keep showing up. Make sure it's not just a weekly event, that you're there for each other, meeting each other's needs. Like, what would happen? I think I pitched this before. If there was not a single physical, emotional, or spiritual need that was not being met in the community of Redemption. And then what happens, and we're seeing this actually happen, we've got spiritually curious people that check us out, that start learning this and committing themselves in this way. It begins to be an overflow. It becomes habitual. Because I'm doing this and it's becoming a lifestyle with people in the family of God, well, then now, I'm starting to do it outside of that. We had a couple who was still figuring out this Jesus thing and has been learning what it means in our microchurch to live as a spiritual family. Their neighbors across the street, the husband's in an induced coma from COVID, and they organized a whole meal, even though they're financially strapped right now, organized a whole meal for that family, started serving, loving. No one asked them to do that. They just did it themselves. Why? Because they're learning to do that for those of us, even within the spiritual family. And so I think if we can get better at that and practicing our faith, not just talking about it, committing our lives to one another, I think we will be amazed just in that one simple thing, how God will start to transform us. Some of the things that have just seemed like theory to us or obstacles we couldn't overcome will start to become much easier for us to do. The same way I can't learn about running a marathon from books or videos. I actually have to just start putting in the training. The same way I really can't walk in the way of Jesus until I start actually putting it in practice with some people around me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, a couple really neat things that I think have come out of this for me personally and for Redemption. The first one for Redemption, we had just launched a round of Rooted a few weeks earlier, which if you're not familiar with Rooted, people, it's a really cool 10-week experience to kickstart this life and community that Drew's talking about. And so many of those 150 people or so would not have been in a small group before that. And now they are. And so they've continued meeting with their Zoom meetings. And I'm sure as soon as we're able to not be at the stay in place order, they'll be getting together in small groups. And so that's cool. That's a cool thing that we see. I have one of our older members. He's in his 80s, one of the founding members, and he was put in a Rooted group with a bunch of young folks, and they have been a godsend to him during this moment because he recently lost his wife, and he would be lonely, and they've been a big part of that. So that's cool. The other thing I would say is the time factor. You're right. Like I had a neighbor, I was working in the yard a couple of days ago. I had a neighbor that I probably spoke with once, and because we live on a kind of busy street, it's really not an easy place to get out and talk to neighbors. He came down and talked to me we talked for about 30 minutes. I never talked to him much in my life. And so I thought we wouldn't have done that before this probably. Even though I wanted to be intentional about my neighborhood, other people have to kind of participate, and he was, and I thought, well, boy, we got to keep that kind of thing going, so anyway, I thought that was cool. So, well, it's really great to hear from you, Drew, and we love your family. We miss you, but we're really excited that we get to be a small part of what you're doing there, and I thank you for taking the time to do this, and we're gonna get this out there for our folks and for all the others to see, because we just want people to know God's work continues. It doesn't end just because our communities are on lockdown, so to speak. So, in fact, if you look around the world, much of the churches had to live that way, and yet they've been effective. And so we're get to play a little part of that. So, thanks so much for joining us, and we love you guys and appreciate you a whole lot.
Well, love you guys too, and we love you, Redemption family. Thank you. Thank you for the generosity. Part of the reason we've been able to weather this storm is because we at Renaissance have financial security thanks to churches like Redemption. So thank you. Thank you for thinking beyond just your own church and your church walls. And we miss and love you guys so much, and keep up the great work.